Sarah figured out that by switching to Metro PCS, she gets 2 free smartphones.
Your barbecue ribs are the best.
Take the rest home with you, Sarah.
Just like she figured out that by visiting her in-laws, she doesn't have to cook for the rest of the week. You too figure it out. Get 2 free 4G LTE smartphones from top brands like Samsung and LG after instant rebate when you switch. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included. See store or metropcs.com for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to S-4 on Sunday nights with Eric Cooper. Tonight his guest is, tonight is Eric time again, part 2 of last week's show. So I'm going to go ahead and let Eric take over and bring his guest on.
Hey, welcome to S-4 with Eric Cooper, and we're up here in the mountains in the Cascades in Concrete, Washington. That's where our headquarters for Forest Moon Paranormal is. So tonight, real quick, tonight our show is going to be about contactees and UFO cults, past and present. And we're going to go over some stuff before we get to that. Eric Markham is my guest. He was my guest last week. He was excited about the topic tonight and wanted to be on tonight as well, so we're bringing him back. And now next week, and real quick, we have some new listeners, I know. Some people have just found Forest Moon Paranormal. Some people have just found the show and have no damn idea what Forest Moon Paranormal is. So real quick, Forest Moon Paranormal is our group. It is, if you want to jump into it, it is on Facebook. Just do a search for Forest Moon Paranormal and join the group. We have a page as well. That was before I knew the difference between a page and a group. We are having a Paracon October 22nd, 23rd up here in Concrete, for those that don't know about it. And I have a whole lot going on here, which we're not even going to get to until after the show. I have cases jumping here and jumping there that I have to look at. We cover everything from Bigfoot to UFOs and aliens to spirits and hauntings as a group. And what we did, Area 51 Cafe is our networking name. S4, the reason I call it S4 is because I cover UFOs, alien abduction, alien encounters, conspiracy theories, and we even hit on Bigfoot. Then we have Supernatural Supper on Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock, Blog Talk Radio. The link is always up. And that is SJ and Russ Wells from Fog Paranormal. And they cover spirits, hauntings, and whatever else they feel like covering. And then on Friday nights, we have SJ and the Paranormal Book Club. And she reads excerpts from different paranormal books. So that's a rundown of our shows that we do. And then we have Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you've never heard of Spaced Out Radio, it's run by Dave Scott. I'm also on his roundtable. I'm also a guest co-host on occasion whenever it's a topic that he feels we need to be involved with. And you can find them at www.spacedoutradio.com. And they are on every night from 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to midnight. So, I see nobody's in the Blog Talk chat room. I'm assuming we have listeners. But if you have questions, you can either ask them directly on Facebook or you can ask them in the Blog Talk chat room. Go there now. Now, next week we will be talking about the Illuminati. We're going to get really in depth of the Illuminati. We're going to go into how they started, why they started, and what their agenda is. Don't miss next week, because next week's just going to be hot. I have insiders that will be giving me information. I'm, of course, doing my weekly research for the show, and it's going to be a hot show. So, Eric Markham should be here anytime.
Oh, I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, you are here. Okay.
Yeah,
right on.
You got me hooked in.
Okay, good. Now, let me pull up some notes here. Because we're going to talk about the difference, because a lot of people don't know the difference, between an abductee and a contactee. So what's the difference between an abductee and a contactee? Eric, do you know?
I would assume that an abductee is somebody who is, as the name would suggest, they get kidnapped or taken against their will, have things done to them, and they're maybe have the missing time or have some kind of problems afterwards. Contactee is, to me, more like they know what's going on, they're spoken with before they're taken, or they agree to be taken. That'd be my guess.
You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Abductees are kidnapped, essentially, by extraterrestrials against their will. Nothing good is done to them. Whereas contactees, I have yet to read, I've only seen one contactee that died due to being a contactee. And we'll get to that. And that was her own fault, as well as that of the extraterrestrials that she was reportedly working with. But contactees, usually the first thing I think of when I hear contactee is brotherhood, because that's usually the key word that comes into play. Most of your contactees have nothing but good and love and white light, and the aliens are wonderful. There's no bad aliens. They're all wonderful, and they've got an agreement, or they are special. They are alien, according to what the extraterrestrials have told them. And I'm by no means bashing. It might sound like I'm bashing on them, but I'm not. That's their experience. And in some cases, as you'll see, a lot of money was made due to being a contactee. Now, there's 2 or 3 cases of contactees that are around the 1900s. A lot of the contactee cases you're going to hear about tonight happened around the science fiction period, which it brings a lot of doubt and a lot of question into my mind. So contactees are persons who claim to have experienced contact with extraterrestrials. They've typically reported they were given messages or profound wisdom by extraterrestrials. And most of them have multiple encounters. So here's key points that contactees generally bring. Humankind's not alone in the solar system, and now brothers and sisters from outer space have come to Earth to help those humans who will listen to the promise of a larger universe. The space beings want humankind to become eligible to join an intergalactic spiritual federation. They're here to assist the people of Earth to lift their spiritual vibratory rate so they may enter new dimensions. The citizens of Earth stand now in the transitional period between the dawn of a new age of peace, love, and understanding. Now, many contactees are told they were selected because they are really aliens who are planted on Earth as small children. And after the initial contact, they suffer through several days of restlessness, irritability, sleeplessness, and unusual dreams or nightmares. After a period of weeks to several months, they receive a message from the space beings that prepares them to go forth and share it with others. And here's the thing. You're going to find a lot of, because we're talking about UFO cults tonight as well, and some of these contactees actually made a cult, but it doesn't fall into the cult category, according to my research I've done. Family and friends of the contactees report they are different and changed after their experience. So, what contactees have you heard of?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, God, some of the early ones, like in the 18th century, there were people saying that they were, being in psychic contact. Oh, gosh, like Madame Blavatsky at the turn of the century, Kenneth Arnold.
Yeah.
There was...
Kenneth Arnold wasn't a contactee.
He's not considered a contact. Oh, that's right. He's the first UFO.
He never got messages from anybody. He's the one that coined the term UFO or flying saucer.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that one that. Oh,
you got.
No, they're
Daniel
Billy Meyer.
Yeah,
Billy
there you
Meyer,
go.
Supposedly,
he's on my list. We're talking about Billy Meyer.
And George Adamski. That's the one I was trying to remember.
Yeah, and he made a cult.
Yes, he's the one that isn't he the one that said that he was in contact with people on Venus?
Yeah, you know what? Here's the other thing, because I've got about 20 contactees we're going to be going through, and about majority of them back in about the 70s. Yeah, about the 70s and before, they met Martians. They were from Mars, they were from Venus, and they were from Saturn. That's where the three planets most of them came from. Today you've got the Pleiadians, the Zeta Reticulans. We even hear contactees on Spaced Out Radio from time to time. I would label them contactees because they get messages from extraterrestrials. So contactees became a cultural phenomenon in the 40s and continued throughout the 50s and 60s. And then they started the lectures. Actually, you found 2 or 3 of them that actually went on lecturing circuits together. Helena Blavatsky. She made claims similar to Swedenborg's, which we'll hear about Swedenborg. But here's what we have: 2 of the earliest contactees were in the 1900s, and that was William Magoon and Guy Ballard, who was a later follower of Madame Blavatsky. Now, I do think, upon some research, you'll find that the spiritualist movement with the Fox sisters, the ones who did seances and whatnot, they made claims to doing seances and hearing contact with extraterrestrials. They didn't pursue it. They stayed more on the spirit in the ghost realm versus the extraterrestrial. But they did make claims of getting messages from extraterrestrials on occasion. So
even Tesla claimed that.
Huh?
Even Tesla, when he was set up in Colorado, the name of something Springs, Colorado Springs. Seems
right.
He was doing some radio experiments and believed that he was in contact with extraterrestrial intelligences.
And he might have been. He did. Where did he get his knowledge from? That's what I have to ask.
Yeah.
Tesla.
How do you have a AC generator just pop into your head?
Right. So on some of them, I do have to ask. Maybe they did. Maybe they were. But the ones you're going to hear about tonight, they made a cult. They made a following. A lot of them went to prison. And no profound information, no profound knowledge came out of it. Just they made a cult following, and they made money off their followers. So Magoon wrote a book, William Magoon, Psychic and Healer. It was published in 1930. And I will be sharing websites with you all on some of these cults that are still around today. and even the contactees, they're long gone, but they still have a website that's maintained by the followers. Interesting information, interesting stuff. And I, by far, I might have 20 or 30 contactees and cults in the discussion tonight. That's not even close to how many are still out there today.
So I think the phenomenon has been growing, actually, since about the mid-'80s. It seems like it really took off in the '90s.
I think movies had a play in that.
Like Close Encounters, E.T.
Right. So Magoon wrote the book, William Magoon, Psychic and Healer, and it was published in 1930. He claimed that in the early 20th century he had been unexpectedly and instantaneously transported to where? Mars. The planet was essentially Earth-like with cities and wilderness. The inhabitants had radio and automobiles, and though they were invisible, Magoon could sense their presences. In 1935, Ballard, the other one, claimed that several years earlier he and over 100 others witnessed the appearance of 12, where? Venusians, Venus, in a cavern beneath Mount Shasta. Now, let's talk about Mount Shasta, because there is a lot, and I'm sure our listeners, if they're from Weed, California, there's a lot of phenomena that today happens from Mount Shasta. There's supposed to be, like it says in the reports, a cavern, but Mount Shasta, and we've discussed this before, but it seems there's a lot of energy and a lot of, yeah, that's right. Matter of fact, Friday at Paranormal Discussion, we were discussing about volcanoes, and a lot of activity happens around volcanoes, like UFO activity, Bigfoot activity, just paranormal phenomena in general. If you look at ley lines, I always say ley lines have an answer to a lot of stuff. But Ballard claimed that there were 12 Venusians in a cavern beneath Mount Shasta. The Venusians played music for the audience. They showed the crowd a large mirror-like device that displayed images of life on Venus. The Venusians then allegedly reported that the Earth would suffer through an era of tension and warfare, followed by worldwide peace and goodwill. Huh. You know what? Have you seen Worldwide Peace and Goodwill?
No. But I've seen some probe studies of what the Venusian atmosphere is like, so I'll say right off the bat, I have a feeling it's not our Venus.
Right, but here's where I stand on that. I'll play devil's advocate for a second, because we look at stuff through today's technology. We look at stuff through today's science. Now, we can look at Venus and Saturn and Mars, and I agree. You look at it through today's science, and nothing can survive on it. But what if there's a parallel universe?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
You know, and that's where you stand, and it's very easy for these, with their technology, to potentially come through a wormhole, potentially come through a dimensional shift, and they're on Venus from what they understand Venus to be, but obviously not the Venus we know of.
Right, because I think the longest anything we've sent there, I think the longest the Russians had a probe that I believe lasted 80 minutes before it melted and collapsed on itself.
Well, and look at all the probes. I mean, okay, and I'm going to be called a conspiracy. Well, I am a conspiracy theorist, but look at all the Mars probes from the 70s and even 80s that we sent by Mars that crashed, mysteriously disappeared. We couldn't get anything on Mars. And who's to say we can't still not get something on Mars today? We see the Mars Pathfinder on TV, but if you really look at it, doesn't it look like the Arizona desert to you?
Kinda. Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of pinkish.
Right. So who's to say we don't really not have anything on Mars, because we can't get there because some unknown force is keeping us from exploring it because they don't want us to know anything up there.
Oh, yeah, and what was that excuse they had, that part of the thing was in metric and part of it was in standard, and that's why it crashed at the last. It managed to get all the way over there, but a rounding error in the math is what destroyed it.
And then some of the guests we've had on Spaced Out Radio that have talked about the classified top secret space projects that are on Mars.
Oh, yeah.
So if there were classified secret space projects on Mars, they wouldn't show us what was on Mars anyway, which would lead you to more credence as to why they would be showing you the Arizona desert with the Mars Pathfinder and not really Mars. Just some things to think about, folks. I'm not paranoid. I really don't give a damn. It's just some things to think about.
I did have noticed one thing, though, Eric, when you look at how, it used to be we didn't know what was on Mars, we didn't know what was on Venus, and that's where the extraterrestrials came from. Now, we know out to Pluto pretty much what's out there, or, got a vague idea. And now the aliens are in other stars. So, they've moved away from the local neighborhood and got where they're not verifiable.
Right. And here's what kind of pisses me off and bugs me is why they took Pluto off the planetary ring.
Oh yeah, downgraded it to a.
Yeah, it's not a planet no more. But we have all these new planets we're finding. Really?
Yeah.
But Pluto's not a planet, but we've
it's a planetoid, yeah.
So.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson says he's still getting hate mail for that because he was on the committee that downgraded Pluto to a planetoid, and apparently people, you and I aren't the only ones that took offense to that.
Oh no, a lot of people did that. Went to school and learned about the planets. But, now my kids today, they're going to learn that, Pluto, it's not even going to be mentioned.
It's like an oversized asteroid or something.
So, okay, now we're going to jump into George Adamski. He was probably the most prominent contactee of the UFO era. He took an earlier interest in the occult. He founded the Royal Order of Tibet in the 1930s. And I believe the Royal Order of Tibet is still around today. Now, bear in mind, all these contactees were pre-UFO. Kenneth Arnold sightings of UFOs in 1947 sparked a whole new era, though. Because pre-1947, they were more entity-related. But then after 1947, you had UFOs coming down and entities coming out. So by the late 1950s, many contactees were no longer claiming to have been physically visited, but now they were being channeled. Their messages were coming through trances and Ouija boards and mediums so that's where the shift was. Because before, let's see, I'm trying to remember how the timeline went. But prior to that, prior to the 1950s, they were all being channeled and they were being tranced and whatnot. And then after the 1947, they started having UFOs come down, and they're coming out of the UFOs. So for over 2 decades, you had George Van Tassel, who hosted the annual Giant Rock Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention in the Mojave Desert. You familiar with that one?
I've heard of that one, yeah.
And in the 1950s, contactee Buck Nelson had a similar convention in the Ozarks up until 1965. So, those are some of the more common ones, and now we're going to go over the list. You got Billy Meyer.
Yeah.
He was born in February 3rd, 1937. He's a Swiss citizen. He had many controversial photographs, and a lot of these have been debunked, but I look at debunkers, and a lot of debunkers today are merely disinformation specialists. So you kind of have to look into I like to look at them anyway, whether they've been debunked or whether they've been shown as being frauds. I still like to look at them to make up my own mind, because was it the government making them look stupid, or were they really a fraud? That's where you have to make up your own mind. Now, real quick, I'm going to change the subject for a second. Eric Markham is the news source for Spaced Out Radio. Have you seen the video that's circulating from CERN?
No.
That is supposed to be an actual human sacrifice.
CERN? Human sacrifice? Whoa. I will be looking that one up.
I'll send it to you after the show. It's going to come up next week because we are going to. That is going to tie in with the Illuminati.
Yeah. Human sacrifice. Wow.
It was an actual. Well, I mean, anything can be faked.
Right.
But it was an actual video, and the guy that was making the video was wearing a robe. He was like in, I don't know, the 5th or 6th floor of one of the CERN buildings. Was making the video of the CERN courtyard, and it looks very, very accurate. I mean, I've never been to CERN, obviously, because it's in Switzerland, but it looks authentic. It looks like an actual CERN, what a CERN building would look like. And you see several hooded figures come out, and you see a woman, a young woman, with a white gown on. And she wasn't fighting. It was almost like, and even going back to the Druids, centuries ago, the sacrifices they used in their rituals, they were born to be a sacrifice. They were raised to be a sacrifice. So they took it as an honor to be sacrificed. And that's exactly how I see this woman acting. Like she knew that her purpose in life was to be sacrificed for the Illuminati. She came out. She went down on her knees. The main guy in the robe got behind her, and almost like there's a signal or something, she laid down. And then you see the guy step forward, and you see him plant the knife. Now, the guy that's making the video, and the reason I bring it up, and the reason I bring maybe credence to it, I don't know, anything can be staged and acted, but his response, he freaked the hell out when he saw that girl get sacrificed. And unless he's a really good actor, that guy's emotion and trauma and freaking out sounded pretty damn legit to me.
Yeah, I'm watching it now. They say it's a hoax.
Huh?
They're saying it was a mock sacrifice, but it's still, kind of an evil thing to do, I would think. Yeah, I'm watching it on YouTube now. Okay. So you found it already? Yeah, I've got it on my laptop.
See what else you can find out about that.
That's pretty...
Because, honestly, hoax or not, they're going to come out and say it's a hoax because CERN doesn't want that kind of publicity.
Right.
They really won't. So it may very well be a hoax, but they're going to say it's a hoax whether it was or not.
Well, that looks like that's a statue of Shiva.
Uh-huh.
Or is it Shiva or... Can't tell if it's Shiva or Kali. I'd have to look into that. But it's obviously one of the Hindu pantheon. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the pose, I would say that's probably Shiva.
But yeah, she came out very calm, acted like that was her purpose in life, to be sacrificed, which is very accurate for what their sacrifices would be.
Right.
So we'll bring that up again next week, folks.
I'll look more into that.
Look it up.
Yeah, I think I'll be doing an article for SOR on that. Good.
That's why another reason I brought it up, because I figured you'd get some detailed information on it before next week's show.
Yeah,
I assume you're going to be on next week's show. You
yeah,
want to
I'll
discuss
try, yeah.
Illuminati, don't you?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, Illuminati, and that's that goes. Now, are you with, just to stay on the Illuminati a little bit? Do you put the Masons and the Illuminati together, or do you consider those?
I think they're
some
separate.
Masons are Illuminati, or
I think they're separate, but I think they have
Okay.
Illuminati ties.
Okay.
Just like the Skull and Bones.
Right.
And I'd like to, if we can pull her in, I'm going to be talking to Christina George, because she's over there and has inside information about Bohemian Grove. And she's in California. So I do believe Bohemian Grove is the Illuminati's sacrificial grounds, because everybody knows, and it has been proven, they do human sacrifices there. That's not a hoax. That's not bullshit. That is a true fact.
And they get away with it.
Yeah, and they have tight security, and you're not getting in there unless they want you in there.
Right.
And the Illuminati has a lot of psychics. They have a lot of their own remote viewers, and we'll be getting into a whole lot of that next week. I'm not going to spoil nothing now. I haven't done my research yet, so I don't have a whole lot, and I have a lot more information that will be coming in over the week from insiders. Anyway, Billy Meyer was born February 3rd, 1937. He's a Swiss citizen. That's why I brought up CERN.
Yeah.
He brought up a whole lot of controversial photographs of UFOs. He was in contact with extraterrestrial beings. And a lot of this went into the 70s, such as he had metal samples, sound recordings, film footage. He reports regular contact with extraterrestrials he calls the Pleasuran. He claims that the Pleasuran look similar in appearance to humans. Their home world is called Era, E-R-R-A. It's located in a dimension which is a fraction of a second shifted from our own dimension, about 80 light years beyond the Pleiades, an open star cluster. The Pleasuran were given the name Pleiadians by Meyer up to 1995. He's accumulated a large collection of photographs showing alleged spaceships that he calls beam ships, as well as Pleasuran. Meyer says that the Pleasuran gave permission to photograph and film their beam ships so he could produce some evidence for the extraterrestrial visitations. His claims are both believed and disputed by UFO skeptics and enthusiasts. He claimed his first extraterrestrial contacts occurred in 1942 at the age of 5 with an elderly extraterrestrial man named Svath. Contacts with Svath lasted until 1953. Shortly after that, Svath died, and from 53 to 64, Meyer's contacts continued with an extraterrestrial woman named Asket, A-S-K-E-T, who is not a Pleasuran. He then took an 11-year break. Contacts resumed again beginning January 28th, 1975, with an extraterrestrial woman named Semjase, S-E-M-J-A-S-E. If it's European, the J is pronounced as a Y, so it'll be Semjase, the granddaughter of Svath. I hope you're following with me here. Meyer says he also has many contacts with another Pleasuran named Ta, starting in 75 and continuing right up to the present day. Now you can find more information about them at www.figu.org, F-I-G-U.org. And that's all we're going to try. I just have a whole brief summary about each one of these people. And like I encourage everybody on this show, go out and if you're really interested, do some research. Our next one is Wayne Sulo Aho. You heard that one?
Like, you got to get. It just seems like to be a contactee, your first order of business is get yourself a really hard to pronounce or off kilter name.
Oh, I've got one that was he was a Sunray. His name was he named himself Sunray. and he was a musician. And he played jazz, but he made his own jazz style based on extraterrestrials. So Wayne Sulo Aho was born 24 August 1916. He died 16 January 2006. He was an American contactee who claimed contact with ETs. He was one of the more obscure members of the 50s, a wave of contactees, who followed George Adamski. A lot of them did. He claims to have been in contact with a humanoid since childhood, in his case at the age of 12. He mainly spoke about contact occurring in 57. The year claimed he was initiated as a cosmic master of wisdom after attending a contactee George Van Tassel's Giant Rock Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention. He also had telepathic summons led him into the desert where a saucer appeared and a voice ordered him to go forth and create his own yearly convention in the home state of Washington. I have yet to follow anything in Washington about him, though. So I don't think he lasted.
Yeah, everybody's always either the second coming of Christ or some kind of important herald of the truth. Nobody's ever the extraterrestrial janitor, or nobody has a run-of-the-mill job. I notice in that community, it's always, they stopped and had me pump their septic tank for them. No, I'm the depository of their extraterrestrial knowledge.
Right.
Just saying.
No, I agree. I think there are a couple that were they were small janitors or whatever. We'll get to them. We got Orfeo Angelucci. There we go. Beginning summer of 52, and we're still in the 50s, and we do kind of follow a timeline of sorts, as you'll see. He wrote a book, The Secret of the Saucers, 1955. He began to encounter flying saucers and the friendly human-appearing pilots during his drives home from the aircraft plant he worked at. They were superhuman space people. They were handsome, often transparent, and highly spiritual. Eventually, he was taken on an unmanned saucer to Earth orbit, where he saw a giant mothership drift past a porthole. He also described having experienced missing time, and eventually remembered living for a week in the body of a space brother, Neptune, and a more evolved society on a large asteroid. While his body wandered around the aircraft plant in a day.
I find it interesting that these stories parallel some of the science fiction that was,
exactly, that
the
was
pulp
my point
science fiction of that era.
And you had Fate magazine that came out in about the 50s too.
Yes.
So you got to remember, a lot of these, they do parallel, and they even parallel some of the 1970s UFO documentaries that came out. I remember seeing them as a kid on occasion. I wasn't into UFOs, but I found it kind of fascinating because I thought it more of science fiction, though. Even back then, I didn't get into UFOs and alien abduction until the 90s. So Truman Bethram was born August of 1898, and he died in May of 1969. He was the second of the well-known 1950s contactees who claimed to have spoken with people from other planets and entered or ridden in their spacecraft. His experience led him to discuss the issue with George Adamski. So this is the one that actually came to George Adamski. Adamski didn't convert him as much as he was pre-George. In 1953, Bethram first published magazine and newspaper Redondo Beach Daily Breeze in September of 53. Accounts of being contacted on 11 separate occasions by the human crew of a landed spaceship. Okay, that's right. He had the voluptuous female captain Aura Raines was the name of the extraterrestrial that he was in contact with. Her saucer and crew, who spoke colloquial English, came from the unknown planet Clarion, allegedly on the other side of our moon. So, 1954 book, Aboard a Flying Saucer, gave many details of his suffering at the hands of skeptics.
Of course.
His information about Clarion and its people. And then we have Woodrow Derenberger. Now, I've heard of Daniel Fry, I've heard of Adamski, I've heard of most of the bigger ones, but a lot of these other ones, even back in the 50s, doing the research here, they're new to me.
Yeah, there's
didn't quite realize there were that many out there. They're all back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, Derenberger was a sewing machine salesman. In November of '66, he encountered an alien being on a lonely stretch of road on Interstate 77 near Mineral Wells, West Virginia. His claim was at the time something sensational. He claimed to have met and have interacted with an alien from the planet Lanulos. Now we're getting into some interesting ones. The planet Lanulos. His story was actually corroborated when the local paper also released reports from multiple witnesses who saw strange lights in the sky around the time Derenberger claimed to have had his encounter. So it became a big deal overnight. Many witnesses came forward under the cover of anonymity and talked about the lights and the strange alien creature they saw. The media blew it up, and that became national news. And he wrote a book, Visitors from Lanulos. Now, these media reports also influenced John Keel to write his book, The Mothman Prophecies. So,
I was so disappointed in that movie.
I was too. I've got the book somewhere. I used to. It appears as though Derenberger might have paid a high price for his notoriety, his continuous media invasion on the private life. He lost his wife. She took the kids.
Yeah.
But his daughter, Tanya Bowman, has taken the task of writing a book based on their experiences, and I believe that is current.
It seems like they either made it big and made a living off of it, or they crash and burn pretty gloriously.
Well, here's what I find interesting about that case. That case had, witnesses to an entity that they all saw. Now, was it Mothman or was it actually his alien?
Well,
That's
I've heard. I've heard
Eric?
somebody say the whole Mothman. Yeah.
Both Erics. Eric, did you need to load some samples at work?
Yeah. Let me lay the phone down for about a minute and get some. I got a couple cardiac profiles to slap on the machine.
Okay.
Okay. Well.
Be right back.
Eric Cooper.
Yep.
Keep talking.
Yes. Huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll keep right on going. For those who don't know, Eric Markham is our scientist in Forest Moon Paranormal. If we have samples that need to be checked out for paranormal cases or whatever, then he is in North Carolina, and he will handle anything paranormal scientific related. So, yes, we do actually have a documented and schooled scientist in our group. And we are going to move right along with Daniel Fry. Now, some of you may have heard of Daniel Fry. He was one of the more common ones. He was born in 1908, and he died in 1992. He established Understanding Incorporated in 1955 as a means of better spreading the teachings of space brother Elon, who Fry claims to have met on his first trip in a UFO, from White Sands Proving Grounds. Now, I've always said you'll find a lot of alien species, especially with the reptilians. They are here, they are in the mountain areas, or they are around military bases. And a lot of cases you will find them, again, in volcanoes. And I can speak for that as far as the reptilian species goes. Other ones, I'm not familiar with most of the other species. I do have knowledge about the Greys and the Nordics. Those are the three that I do personally know about. So back to Daniel Fry. He was in New Mexico. He actually went out to the middle of the desert where he met Elon. And White Sands Proving Grounds, for those that don't know, is in New Mexico, and that's where he worked. He planned to join the July 4th, 1949 evening festivities in nearby Las Cruces, but he missed the bus. So he found the bachelor officers' quarters where he stayed, and they're too hot, so he decided to explore a path in the desert, and he claimed to see a 30-foot diameter, 16-foot oblate spheroid land in front of him. And he talked remotely with the pilot. By remotely, I assume he probably talked telepathically, because that's how most of them work. They operated the craft from a mothership 900 miles away, above the Earth. He claims he was invited aboard and flown over to New York City and back in 30 minutes. During the flight and subsequent meetings, he asserted he talked with a pilot named Alan, pronounced Elon, who gave Fry information on physics, the prehistory of Earth, including Atlantis and Lemuria, and the foundations of civilization. So he's an interesting one because, I mean, he wasn't told, you know, the Earth's peaceful and we're not gonna be at war anymore. He was actually taught some stuff. So he's an interesting contactee to come up. And then we got Gabriel Green. Now, he was born November of 1924 in Whittier, California. He died September of 2001 in Yucca Valley. He is one of the earlier ufologists. He claimed contact with extraterrestrials. He was actually, are you sitting down? He was actually a write-in United States presidential candidate in 1962 and 1970. In 1960 and 1972. He founded the California-based Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America in 1957. Approximately at the same time, he announced his meeting with flying saucer crewmen from the planet Coriander, which is orbiting the triple star Alpha Centauri. Like Adamski and most of the other contactees of that period, he was able to maintain continual telepathic links with the wise and the helpful ETs he had met back in the 60s. All right. So during his 1960 run for U.S. president, he claimed to represent the Universal Flying Saucer Party and to base his political philosophy on United World Universal Economics. He also ran unsuccessfully for the U.S. Senate in 1962 in California. He claims to have accumulated over 171,000 votes. In 1967, he published his only book, Let's Face Facts About Flying Saucers. In 1972, he ran again, this time in Iowa, for president, and he collected less than 200 votes. Like most, if not all, of the 1950s contacts, he was more interested in the New Age theosophical topics such as reincarnation, channeling, spiritualism, and psychic phenomena than he was in being a prophet. And after his last run for president,
Yeah, I'd like 200 votes for... Yeah, I remember reading about him before. It always made me think of Pat Paulson for president.
Right.
I just
found
there.
I found it fascinating that a presidential candidate was a contactee.
Right.
That was
the
funny.
Universal Flying Saucer Party.
Yeah. Where did it go? It's not even listed anywhere anymore. Now, I may get some skepticism for this one, but I actually have Stephen Greer listed as a contactee. for those that don't know about Stephen Greer, he was the one that started the Disclosure Project, which was all fine and good. It brought out some, good information. It brought into a congressional committee, but Greer's whole focus was on good aliens, not on the abduction phenomena, and not that there are bad alien encounters out there. So I don't really stand behind the Disclosure Project anymore.
No, I think it's become a money maker, more of a money machine.
Now, let me clarify. I stand behind disclosure. Yes.
Right.
The Disclosure Project, no. That was Stephen Greer's baby. Stephen Greer was born in 1955. He's an American retired medical doctor and ufologist. He founded the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, CSETI, and the Disclosure Project. Now, he founded the Center for CSETI in 1990 to create a diplomatic and research-based initiative to contact ETs. In 1993, he founded the Disclosure Project, which was a nonprofit research project whose goal is to disclose to the public the government's alleged knowing of UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and advanced energy and propulsion systems. It was founded in an effort to grant amnesty to government whistleblowers willing to violate their security oaths by sharing insider knowledge. And a lot of them did. That's why I say it wasn't a completely bad idea. How he went about doing it and promoting peace and love and all aliens are here for our benefit was pure and utter horse crap. So he falls in with the contactees. He gave a briefing to the CIA director, James Woolsey, at a dinner party, although this was denied by the director, which, he's and again, if I was the director of the CIA, and even whether I did or not, I would probably deny it too. In 1994, he appeared in Larry King's TV special, The UFO Cover-Up. In 1995, he was working as a physician at the Department of Emergency Medicine at Caldwell Memorial Hospital, where he was the chairman. In 1997, he, along with other members of CSETI, including Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, made a presentation at a background briefing for members of Congress. In 1998, he gave up his career as an emergency room physician in favor of the Disclosure Project. Now, in May of 2001, he held a press conference at the National Press Club that featured 20 retired Air Force. You can find all this on YouTube, actually. Look up the Disclosure Project, and you'll find all of their videos. Even though they try to charge you like $200 or $300 for all of them, you can still find them on YouTube.
Yeah.
But, yeah. He even had Gordon Cooper and other astronauts that came out and were talking about it. So, like I said, overall, it wasn't a bad project. It's just, again, the way he went about doing it.
Yeah, and then once the money gets involved, you kind of, I don't know, it seems like
really question.
Once the money gets involved into it, it starts to get kind of shady.
Right. Now we're going to talk about Dana Howard. Dana Howard, one of the mid-50s contactees who claimed she went to Venus, married a Venusian. Bertie Lily Candler on April 29, 1955. Candler was a medium. She later claimed she went to Venus, married a Venusian, and raised a family on that planet. Because Candler managed to summon up and materialize an 8-foot-tall blonde woman from Venus. So within a year after the original 52 contactee, that's when Adamski, spirit mediums, and Ouija boards and everything else came out as a standard for communicating with the friendly space brothers. The 8-foot-tall blonde named Diane provided Howard with material for most of her books. Her messages is of the usual stereotypical mid-50s theosophical content, including techniques for mastery of the subconscious, remembering past lives, direct knowing and elimination, purification, rejuvenation, and regeneration, or transmuting. Once the human race evolves to the next level, it will be transferred as a life stream to Venus for further spiritual development. So now we're back on Venus again.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't like the weather. It's too hot for me here in North Carolina.
Now, we have Betty and Barney Hill. They are listed as contactees merely because, although she's one of the few that only had one contact, but she becomes as a contactee because of what she drew. Do you remember, have you seen the star chart that she drew?
Yes, and how accurate it was.
It was very accurate, and it wasn't known at the time of the abductee.
No,
that particular star system had not been examined. And it wasn't, they didn't put two and two together about that until fairly, I guess, back in the 90s, I want to say.
Yeah, I remember some astronomy professor actually went back over the eyewitness testimony and did like a 3D model.
Right.
Inside a huge room, and there were some jaws dropping and... Yeah, because
it was if you're curious about this, I do have a picture of that drawing that she drew. That actually the aliens gave her to draw. And they actually had her draw it with their permission, and she brought it back with her. So that's why they fall in with the contactee category. Typically, I consider them abductees, not contactees, because they didn't bring back a message of brotherhood love. They were actually abducted and went through a lot of painful. Well, Barney. Yeah, but Barney came back with a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
as far as being an abductee. Betty went through some experiments and whatnot, but she was given information and stuff when she came back. So they kind of walked the line, but again, it's not. I consider them more abductees than I do contactees.
Yeah, because they had the whole missing time and everything. Yeah.
Right. They fit every profile for the abduction. Okay.
Yeah, they had no idea that it had happened, and then all of a sudden.
No, they went through hypnotherapy.
Yeah, that was that's where it came out, was the hypnotherapy.
Right.
They didn't.
They're actually hypnotized. And now we have you familiar with George King?
George King.
He was the Aetherius.
God, sounds familiar, but there's so many of them.
Right. He started the Aetherius Society. He was born in 1919. He died in 1997. And he claims to have been named the primary terrestrial mental channeler by Master Aetherius of Venus. He was later declared an agent for the Great White Brotherhood and a channel for both Aetherius and Master Jesus. Members of the Aetherius Society are earnestly engaged in the war being waged by the Brotherhood against the Black Magicians, against they feel seeks to enslave the human race. Now, the Aetherius Society is a millennial New Age UFO religion. It was founded by George King in the mid-50s. I believe it's still around today. And I find it really interesting because they actually pooled several religions together. The Aetherius Society combines UFO claims, yoga, ideas from various world religions, notably Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity.
Way to cover the bases.
He did. It became a complex religious belief system and includes an extraterrestrial hierarchy of various spiritual masters in such concepts as universal karma, religious healing. The religion's goal is to prevent worldly destruction by improving cooperation between humanity and various alien masters. And that's what I mean by you're going to see a lot of these contactees, and they actually have a UFO cult within them. So I won't mention them again under UFO cults because it was the contactee that started them. The UFO cults we're going to talk about, well, they're completely different, including Scientology.
Scientology, the Raelians, yeah.
Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate.
We will get to them.
I think one of those people survived.
They did.
I think she's under the radar and doesn't do interviews or anything. But
do you blame her?
No.
I mean, these are people. They all bought, and they all committed suicide under the guise that they were going to join the spaceship behind Haley Bopp. And for those that don't know, in 1997, when that happened, I've been doing UFO and alien abduction research since like 1993, 94. I was heavy into researching UFOs and alien abduction for many years, and I still research today. But in 1997, I was in Landstuhl Army Hospital, going through rehab, and I was pulled out of breakfast to go talk to the Landstuhl psychologist. Hadn't even heard anything about Heaven's Gate, but I was asked, "Did you hear about Heaven's Gate?" And I said, "No, who's Heaven's Gate?" And she said, "Well, we know you research UFOs and abduction, but Heaven's Gate committed suicide this morning to join a UFO over Haley Bopp." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting. No, I'm not going to commit suicide. Don't worry about it." and oh my God, then we got into about another hour-long discussion, like we always did. She was a very interesting psychologist. Actually had her own UFO experience. So every time we had our psychology sessions, we wound up talking about UFOs. So, but yeah, very interesting. Anyway, the Assyrian Society has the cosmic master of Venus, Buddha, and Jesus. The Society's membership is international in composition. In 2011, which, yeah, it is still around, they have members from the UK, USA, New Zealand, and Africa. Their teachings come from, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, have come to Earth to teach mankind the right way of living. Oh, wait, I think this is the one that actually has their own... Is that the one? Well, I'm going down. There's one that actually has their own rendition of the Ten Commandments, but they have 12 commandments, and that's not the one. You can find out more information about them at www.aetherius.org, aetherius.org. And moving right along, because we have less than an hour left now, and there's a whole lot of people to cover. We have Elizabeth, huh? We've already covered an hour. It's going fast.
Yeah, it is.
We have Elizabeth Clare from 1910 to 1994. She was a South African who claimed to have been contacted by extraterrestrials between 54 and 63. She was one of the first women to claim a sexual relationship with an extraterrestrial. She recalled that she had been receiving occasional telepathic messages from her Venusian space friend Orthon. She was able to take photos from the ship from the Drakensberg Mountains, and there's actually a picture of the... I'm actually taking this information as well. I've got pictures of all the people and some of their spacecraft that they claim to have seen. I'm making a presentation that I might, if we have time at the Paracon, I might actually also present this as a presentation with a lot more details and pictures. Pictures are awesome. Especially of George Applewhite. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It reminds me of George Carlin.
Yeah, like a deranged George Carlin.
No disrespect. I love George Carlin, and I mean no disrespect to him. Rest his soul.
Yeah.
But he does look very similar to George Carlin, but deranged.
Like if you gave George Carlin, instead of some Vicodin, you gave him several espresso shots.
Right. Now she managed to call down Akon and his scout ship on April of 1956 for an actual landing. She was carried up to the mothership in Earth orbit, and she was eventually transported in 1957 to Akon's home planet of Meton. orbiting in the nearby multiple star system Alpha Centauri, where she and Akon had sex. She became pregnant. She delivered a male child. Her son, Ailing, stayed behind on Meton to be educated while Claire came home. So this whole process of having sex and pregnancy, delivery, and return took less than 4 months. And she wrote a book, published it, called Beyond the Light Barrier, 1980, about her whole extraterrestrial adventure. And she was not an Adamski follower like the rest of them were, but she died in 1994 in South Africa. These are books you can look up, too. In fact, I might look up some of them eventually. And now we have George Adamski. We're not going to cover him in great detail because, like I said, we are on a timeline. And look him up, and oh my God, this man.
Encyclopedia just for him.
Yeah, you could write a book, and he wrote several books, but you could write a book just on this man alone. He's the one who a lot of these contactees actually followed. He was born in 1891. He died in 1965. He walked into the night Desert Center, California, and he's actually, I believe, the one that created the Desert Center in the California's Palomar Mountains. So on October 9th of 1946, during a meteor shower, he and some friends claimed that while they were at the Palomar Gardens campground, they witnessed a large cigar-shaped mothership. He took a photograph of it, and let's see, he claimed he saw 184 UFOs pass over the Palomar Gardens in one evening. He started a lecture circuit. I'm scrolling here because there's a lot of information and I'm not covering it all. Yeah, he had the Venusian named Orthon. This Venusian sought him out. Several people also saw this Venusian ship, and several of them actually saw Adamski meet with Orthon. Orthon said to have returned the photographic plate to Adamski on December 13th, 1952, and when it was developed, it was found to contain strange symbols. There's a famous photograph that Adamski is said to have taken of a Venusian ship using a 6-inch telescope, and that's where the problem comes in, because there's a lot of people that, and come on now, you have a picture from the 1950s, you can't fake that like you do today. You know?
Yeah, you'd have to actually build a model. You couldn't Photoshop
You'd have to build a model. In order to duplicate or fake a picture back then, you had to actually alter the negatives.
Right.
So that's why you kind of have to look at some of these, and if they had pictures, I know it might have been Adamski. The one that had the beam ship pictures, those were proven to be fake, because one of them was actually a street light that he zoomed up on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, some of the Billy Meyer ones, yeah.
Billy Meyer, there you go.
His whole thing was he was unemployed, dirt broke, only had one arm, and supposedly found a camera in a trash can. And hey, give the guy, I'll give him A for reinventing himself and turning a junk camera into a cult.
Yeah, and he was actually one of the originals. I mean, Adamski is the one they claim to be the master and the original of all the contactees. But he was right up there with them. And actually, I think Adamski was stateside, and he was in Switzerland. So he has that credit. So we're going to skip. We're going to skip. We skipped over Adamski. He was the master. Look him up. We're going to jump into Dino Kraspedon. He was born in 1905, died in 2004. His real name was, he was Brazilian. His real name was Aladino Felix. he claimed to be contacted by an extraterrestrial from Jupiter. Now, much of his information was scientifically, medically, and more nature given in his book. He published Moi Contado. That's My Contact with Flying Saucers. There you go, English. My Contact with Flying Saucers. Published in 1959. And it tells the story of his claimed contact with a flying saucer commander named Dino Kraspedon. And that's where he took on the name of the extraterrestrial. He was given a lengthy Q&A interview by Mr. Kraspedon, in which he explained advanced concepts in physics, gave insights on how to improve humanity's social conditions on Earth, and later he publicly clarified that he did not witness the male human extraterrestrial leaving or entering any spacecraft. Mr. Kraspedon correctly predicted that there would be a period of terrorism, and ironically was arrested for suspicion of being a terrorist in 1968. Now, Gloria Lee. She was a former flight attendant, the wife of aircraft designer William Byrd. She sighted a UFO in the 50s. In 1953, she began to receive telepathic communication from an entity on the planet Jupiter who revealed himself only as JW. As she came to place more confidence in her space being, she became a well-known figure among UFO cultist groups and became a lecturer and a channel. And it was revealed to her that on Jupiter, vocal cords had gone out of use. So she began to channel a book through Gloria Lee. She founded the Cosmon Research Foundation, dedicated to the spreading of his teachings, JW that is, and the bringing about of humankind's spiritual development in preparation for the New Age. Through JW's direction and the persistence of Gloria Lee on the lecture circuit, the foundation became a living organization. Then, and here's the one that died, actually doing her work, Gloria Lee starved herself to death after a 66-day fast instituted upon the instructions of her mentor in Jupiter. The fast was carried out in the name of peace, in a Gandhi-like effort to make the United States government officially investigate and study plans for a spacecraft that she had brought with her to Washington. On September 23, 1962, Lee secured herself in a hotel room. On December 2nd, it was still no word from any government official or from her extraterrestrial advisor. She was only 37 years old, and she died. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because shortly after her passing, she had a Mark Age Meta Center in Miami, Florida, and they announced that they were receiving messages from her spirit. Her etheric form told the group that she was now able to discover how the method of interdimensional communication actually worked, and as the Meta Center took notes for a booklet her publisher would later issue to the faithful and the curious, her spirit spoke through the channel Nada Yolanda, explaining how her conscious intelligence had been transferred to another frequency and another body of higher vibrational rate. Now we're getting a little more current, because now we have Nancy Leiter. Now, if you're familiar with the Nibiru cataclysm, remember that in 2012 Nibiru was supposed to hit the Earth, and it comes back every 2,600 years. And do you remember that?
Oh yeah, we were supposed to have Planet X, or Nibiru was supposed to make another round. And
Nancy Leiter is the one who came up with that, and on the internet, actually, on her little website, she came up with that theory that we're supposed to have Nibiru was supposed to come up and they're supposed to hit the Earth and Planet X, amongst many other names that came up with it. So I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was supposed to come through the Zeta Reticular star system, is where she got the messages from. Yeah, she made Zeta Talk. She's the founder of the website Zeta Talk. And she describes herself as a contactee with the ability to receive messages from ETs from the Zeta Reticuli star system through an implant in her brain. That would be why she is a contactee. And she was told about Nibiru, and it's supposed to strike the Earth. And Zechariah Sitchin is where she derived a lot of her information from. Are you still there? Okay, we're carrying on. After Leader, the first person to propagate her Planet X idea was Mark Hazelwood, a former member of the Zeta Talk community. And in 2001, he published a book titled Blindsided Planet X Passes in 2003. She had later accused him of being a confidence trickster. A Japanese cult called the Pana Wave Laboratory, which blocked off roads and rivers with white claws to protect itself from electromagnetic attacks, and also warned that the world would end in May of 2003 after the approach of a 10th planet. Roughly a week before the supposed arrival of Planet X, Leader appeared on KROQ FM radio in LA and advised listeners to euthanize their pets in anticipation of the event, as she had done. So, this led to the Fortune Times to conclude that she had put down her dogs to save them from further suffering from the pole shift. And so, despite the date having passed, many websites still contended that Nibiru, Planet X, is en route to Earth. So, again, these are all things you can look up. These are just some of the common names we're going over. Next, we have Riley Martin. May of 9th of 1946, just died December of 2015. He was an American self-described alien contactee, author, and radio host. He was the author of the book The Coming of Tan, which describes his life and his alleged alien abduction. He hosted the Riley Martin Show on the Sirius XM radio channel Howard 101. He appeared on the Howard Stern Show, was considered part of the Whack Pack. He claimed he was first abducted by aliens in November of '53 near the St. Francis River while living in Arkansas. He characterized his interaction with the aliens as positive. The Byavian alien Okwatengan, also known as Tan, is listed as a co-author of his book. He asserted that a significant amount of knowledge was uploaded into his brain by the aliens within a matter of minutes, including 144,000 ancient alien symbols. He claimed these aliens flying aboard the Great Mothership gave him this knowledge so he could produce and sell hand drawings of these symbols, which will allow passage aboard the Mothership when the Earth is transformed in 2012. There we go. And 2012 has come and gone, as you all know. And we are still here.
Yeah.
And now, next up, we have Howard Menger. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Howard Menger. Howard Menger was born February of 1922, died February of 2009. He was an American contactee who claimed to have met ETs throughout the course of his life, meetings which were the subject of his books he wrote, such as From Outer Space to You and The High Bridge Incident. He rose to prominence as a charismatic contactee, and again, he dealt with Adamski and Venusian Space Brothers in the late 50s. He was accepted by some UFO believers. He later mentioned in a documentary that the space people he had been contacted by were based on Venus and other planets in the solar system, but he believed they lived somewhere else in the universe. He had religious revelations to impart after his experiences, and he came back from his contacts with practical messages. When he was still young, he moved with his parents to the rolling hills of Hunterdon County, New Jersey, where he first alleged contact with a person from another planet at the age of 10 in the woods near his hometown of High Bridge, New Jersey. He entered the United States Army. He was attached to the 17th Tank Battalion and in later life he was employed as a sign painter. He claims he touched souls, and in some cases bodies, with space beings. Now we have Buck Nelson. Buck was a farmer. He was born in 1895, died in 1982. He claims he encountered a UFO and its human crew in 1954 while living in Missouri. He believed the friendly occupants of the spacecraft to be humans from the planet Venus. His story is contained in his book that he wrote, My Trip to Mars, the Moon, and Venus. It's been speculated by some that the space visitors have bases on Venus, the Moon, and Mars instead of living on those planets. He saw 3 flying saucers over his farmhouse. He took photographs. He attempted to signal them a flashlight. A beam of light much brighter and hotter than the sun was shined at him. And he had chronic lumbago, which disappeared, and his eyesight dramatically improved. He goes on to claim that after dusk fell, 3 friendly human spacemen, accompanied with a large dog, visited him and spent time talking with him. He further stated that 2 of the people from Venus had adopted the names Bucky and Bob. And their main message concerned the 12 laws of God. He's the one.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over the 12 laws that were given to Bucky real quick. Love. Love your maker, your parents, your neighbors, all birds and animals of the earth, and everything in the sea and the air. These are the codes of the Venusians. Honor. Honor your God and parents. Obey God's law, which is also man's law. Now, here's what I find funny, because I've learned a lot through Spaced Out Radio, and I'll say this again for our listeners. If you haven't found Spaced Out Radio by Dave Scott, you need to go www.spacedoutradio.com. They're on every night, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to midnight, Pacific Standard Time. They have some interesting guests every night, and you'll learn a lot because I've heard I've studying abduction. I still have a lot of skepticism on good aliens. Now, I do theorize that there may be good species out there that are at war with the bad species that keep this planet safe. That's where I stand on that. But listening to some of the contactees that come on Dave's show, I find it interesting. It's not like it was back in the 50s for damn sure.
Right. Yeah, you hear Samantha Mowat talk, and it's a completely different narrative.
Oh, exactly. And it's a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
So
well, you don't have people coming from... Now, the one thing I will say about all this stuff about Venus, if you've got the technology to get here, you probably have the technology to put a base on a hostile planet like that, either underground or... And that would be a fantastic place to have a covert base operations, because who's going to screw with you?
Right.
I mean, you can't pierce the cloud. You got to send a probe there to even map the ground with a satellite. I mean, exactly. It's a pretty decent hideout if you can put the air conditioning in place. And then who's to say? Yeah.
But who's to say they need air conditioning?
Right. That might be their Boca Raton down there. That's we keep judging everything by human standards. And part of that problem is so many of these early contactees repeatedly, well, they're human. Well, maybe they looked like they were humans. Maybe they just, maybe they really look like tentacled Cthulhu alien war gods. But they do look like humans.
Look at the insectoid species. The insectoid species looks like a praying mantis. And they call them mantises. But, I mean, yeah. And for our listeners, too, if you go in the Forest Moon Paranormal Library, you'll find a book that's got about 160 different species in it that came from Russia. It's a Russian manual, and it's in English. And some fascinating reading in there. We have just about everything paranormal you could think of in our library.
Oh yeah, I got a copy of that. Our mutual friend Dave gave me a copy of that from my flash drive.
Uh-huh. Now, here's what I find interesting too is when you talk about religion, a lot of these contactees are talking about the different ET species that are out there as having the same creator humans do. Now, is it the Christian version of God, the Buddhist version of higher power? Higher power is higher power. It doesn't really matter what your belief is. Which is why a lot of people are getting away from religion, organized religion, and just calling themselves spiritualists. Because a higher creative being is really all you need to follow.
Right.
Not Christianity, not Muslim, not Catholic, but a higher power. That's all you need to follow. And I think that's kind of where the Venusians were coming from, if they did, because if you look at their laws, okay, a lot of their laws follow the Ten Commandments to an extent. Love your neighbor. Thou shalt not kill. Includes accidents of war. Ooh, they're strict.
Yeah.
Let your light shine before men, and all will see your good works. It will be an honor to you and your God, your Maker. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou must do as thou wish to be done by. Sounds like the golden rule to me.
Golden rule, yeah.
Yep. No other God shall be before thee. Do not take the name of God in vain. Honor your father and mother. Your body is God's. Do not misuse it in any way. Do not drink or eat anything that is not food. Use nothing to harm the body, either inside or out. Wear nothing on the body that harms it or is of no use. And number 12, God made the heaven and the earth, and we must give him thanks for what he gives us. So those were the Venusian Code and the 12 Commandments. Now we go to Ted Owens. He was born in 1920, died in 1987. He was an alleged UFO contactee who claimed paranormal powers and was considered to be a charlatan and a con man. He had a genius-level IQ and was a member of Mensa. Believed he had been a subject of psychic surgery by space intelligence who had operated on his brain to allow him to receive telepathic messages. He considered himself a UFO prophet and compared himself to Moses, claiming psychokinetic power that enabled him to not only predict but control lightning, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and volcanoes, dubbing himself the PK Man. Owens professed that he alleged powers were given to him by space intelligence who wished to call attention to the dangers of nuclear weapons and environmental pollution posed for mankind. And that seems to be still kind of a common theme today, is nuclear weapons. But here's my question with that. UFO sightings today, and there's been documented cases of UFO activity that's gone over nuclear silos and taken our weapons offline. So why would they be talking about this if they can do it themselves?
Right.
Right, you know. And we're going to go ahead and skip a few of these. We're going to talk about UFO cults now. You've kind of got the general gist of who these people are now.
And you watch them evolve as our technology gets a little better, you know, and we start to learn more about the local neighborhood. The stories get a little bit further out of reach.
Now, yeah.
They start getting out to where you really can't call BS on them because you don't know. Because we don't know what's out at, you know, the Orion Nebula other than the nebula. We don't have, you know, you can't open up a book on the solar system and say, well, there's no way they're from Jupiter. There's no landmass.
Right. Now, here's the one we were talking about earlier, Rail. He was born Claude Verheugen. He changed his name to Rail. He was born 30 September 1946. He's the founder and current leader of the UFO religion known as Raelism. And I'll give you their website here shortly. It's, I believe, rail.org. But he began singing at a young age. He became a sports car journalist and test driver for his own car racing magazine. And then he had his extraterrestrial encounter. In December of 1973, he formed the Raelian movement and changed his name to Rael, which means messenger of the Elohim. He later published several books detailing his claims of encounter with a being named Yahweh in 1973. He traveled the world to promote his books for over 30 years. In the book which tells the truth, that's the name of the book, he stated that he had an alien visitation on December of 1973, according to Rael, in a secluded area within a French volcanic crater. Here we go again, volcanoes.
You almost wonder if there's not some... Well, there's so much kinetic energy and so much potential energy in a volcano. Maybe it's like where you go to get your battery recharged.
Right. Now, here's what's interesting about Rael. He was given the mission of informing the world of humanity's origins in anticipation of the return of these extraterrestrials by building a residential embassy in neutral territory. He stated certain mysteries were explained to him based on new interpretations of sacred texts, such as the Bible. He said on October of 1975, he's contacted by one of the Elohim, which took him to another planet to meet Buddha, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. He states his second book was Extraterrestrials Took Me to Their Planet, relates to the teaching he received from these people. And here's what's funny about Rael, and I think he's one of the more realistic of the ones we've talked about, because he talks about harmonious and peaceful beings, okay, we're used to that, who are free of money, sickness, and war. Much of his advocacy concerns futuristic technology described in his 2001 book about human cloning.
Yeah, I remember they were in the news. They claimed to have actually cloned a human.
Yeah. Now, back then, there was no human cloning was just being talked about. And I think by them, actually. And he also talks about nanotechnology. This is back in 2001.
Yeah.
And Rael believes...
They actually have a biotech company.
Yeah. He believes that genetically modified food is the only way to stop hunger everywhere in the world. So maybe Rael is actually behind GMOs. It'd be interesting for something to look into.
Yeah, I'm making a note there. See if they got ties to Monsanto.
Mm-hmm. You might want to look at, if he's trying to be secretive, look at the first name, Claude.
Right.
He changes his name to Rod. His name is Claude Verheulen.
Yeah, yes. But yeah, that's kind of interesting.
That's a good story for you to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one will bear some research. I'm also trying to get a hold of a guy who has invented a blood substitute, and
really?
About 7 years ago, it disappeared.
Huh?
So, yeah.
Oh, kind of like the big pharma.
Yeah, this would be the American Red Cross and the United Blood Services would find themselves slightly out of. Well, I think there'd always be a need for human whole blood. But when it comes to traumatic situations where you just got to get some volume expanders in there, this new blood substitute that he's actually, I think, a pediatric oncologist. Okay. But yeah, it got snapped up by Big Pharma, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Eric?
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Dave in the chat room wants a beard update.
The beard is still here. The beard is growing. And for those that don't know, yeah, Dave is excited about coming to the Paracon so he can pull on my beard.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. Church of the Subgenius is our first UFO cult we're going to discuss. It was founded in 1979 with the publication of Subgenius Pamphlet Number 1 by Ivan Stang and Philo Drummond. I'm going to give you some homework before we close out the show tonight, too.
Okay.
In preparation for next week's show. Because next week I do think is going to be a hotbed.
Oh, yeah.
I don't worry about threats, and I don't worry about... I'm not scared of being threatened. But from what I've read, and some of the things that people that have looked at the Illuminati and people that have made threats to the Illuminati have wound up dead.
Right.
Do I worry about it? No. We're doing the show. We're going to disclose them. We're going to expose them for what they are. That is my goal. People that think they are above everyone and people that think they are globally elite. And what I'm going to do is look at the list of the Bilderbergs. We're going to look at the list of the Skull and Bones. We're going to look at the Knights Templar. And we're going to find a tie between those people, which a lot of them are politicians, and big corporate CEOs, and we're going to show that they have Illuminati ties.
Give me a second. I got an instrument that's malfunctioning. I'll be right back.
Okay. So the Church of the Subgenius, as I said, was founded in 1979. Has an organization claim of over 10,000 followers worldwide who have paid $30 to become ordained subgenius ministers. And it's been embraced by many skeptics and atheist groups. With the publication of the Book of the Subgenius in 1983, the Church of the Subgenius prophesied that its founder, J.R. Bob Dobbs, was in contact with an extraterrestrial race called the Exists. And the Exists were scheduled to launch a worldwide invasion on Earth on July 5th of 1998. Were you familiar with that one? I think he's still working. Anyway, so you look up X Day, Church of the Subgenius. The day of the scheduled invasion came and went without an appearance, and the church members remained unconvinced. The church now holds annual X Day celebrations on July 5th of every year. It also claims its members are not entirely human, having descended from the Yeti. Interesting cult. Then we got Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate achieved notoriety in 1997, like we talked about earlier, when one of its founders convinced 38 followers to commit mass suicide. I believe, if I remember right, it was 39, but one of them actually got away. Left just before they all committed suicide. They all wore Nikes, they all castrated themselves, and they committed suicide to join the UFO behind Kelly Bob. Its founder was Marshall Applewhite, who called himself Doe, and his female partner was Bo. So he declared that he and his female partner were really representatives from another world, which he referred to as the evolutionary level above human. Claiming he came to Earth once in the figure of Jesus, he now asserted that the kingdom of heaven, taught by Applewhite, Christ was a real physical place inhabited by highly evolved beings. Earth was a garden in which human beings have been planted by these superior space beings, but only if they systematically shed all vestiges of their humanity, including sexuality, which is why they castrated themselves.
Okay. Someday I would just like... I think I like the Raelian idea better, where it's like fornicate at
I
will.
do, because, yeah. Well, and the aliens actually had some scientific backing. I mean, they, the GMO, the nanotechnology, whatnot.
Oh, I don't know. This whole Applewhite nettles, when you look into that, it seemed like they were a couple self-loathing, I don't know. There's just, I got to feel bad for the kind of people who are so cast out or so
have low
just
self-esteem.
out of it that they have to join a cult like that.
To me, they have a low, and it takes a people watcher, it takes a people reader to be able to suck up people with low self-esteem, people that really have lost their faith, whatever the case is, and make them feel better about themselves, and they get sucked up into it. And then you feed them a convincing story about a UFO that's coming behind a comet that comes every 100 years or whatever, or longer, and voila. Now, Scientology.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yep, stories of extraterrestrial civilizations and interventions in past lives form a part of the belief system of Scientology. The most well-known story publicized and held up to ridicule by critics is that of Xenu, who is the ruler of the Galactic Confederacy, who is said to have brought billions of frozen people to Earth 75 million years ago, and placed them near a number of volcanoes. There you go. And dropped hydrogen bombs into them, thus killing the entire population in an effort to solve overpopulation. The spirits of these people were then captured by Xenu and mass implanted with numerous suggestions and then packaged into clusters of spirits. So, from the early 50s onward, L. Ron Hubbard published a number of books, lectures, and other works describing what he termed space opera. It teaches that all humans have experienced innumerable past lives, including lives in ancient advanced extraterrestrial societies, such as Heliotropus and the Markabians. Traumatic memories from these past lives are said to be the cause of many present-day physical and mental ailments. So Scientologists also believe that human beings possess superhuman powers which cannot be restored until they have been fully rehabilitated as spiritual beings through the practice of auditing using methods set out by Hubbard in his various works. So you got what? Tom Cruise?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't
Tom Cruise,
Sheen,
John? Yeah, I think Charlie Sheen. Well,
Charlie
one of
Sheen's. I know Tom Cruise is.
A lot of the big Hollywood people are Scientologists. I've heard somebody who broke away from the cult. It took them about 3 times before they actually did escape, saying that most of them are just used as slave labor to put together the those little detectors that they sell.
Mm-hmm.
That it's really not. Dianetics, I think, part
there
of it.
There you go. Yeah, it's Dianetics. So we have about 15 minutes. And we're gonna wrap up. So basically, you've seen a whole slew of contactees. Kind of saw where they started from. Not so much in the 1900s, because you gotta remember the science fiction genre didn't really kick off until about the 40s, 50s.
Right.
Which is kind of where Adamski started. And then a lot of them kind of glommed onto him. And like I said earlier, a lot of these contactees actually joined together and went on lectures together, which I kind of find shows you where the money.
Right, follow the money.
It's all about the money. Let's get together, write some books, and go on a lecture tour, and charge people a whole lot of money to come to our event.
Exactly. It seems like if you couldn't make it as a science fiction author, then you became a cult leader.
Basically, yeah. And again, there's at least 10 to 15 that we haven't even discussed that we just ran out of time. I'm going to do a presentation format, put it together, and if we have time, we'll do it at the Paracon as well. We're definitely doing the UFO past and present, and alien abduction past and present. I'm already kind of in the itinerary for that one. So, but if any of our listeners out there have an idea for a topic, by all means, run it by me, and we'll put it together.
I sure hope I get out there next year. We're doing some upgrades on our computer system here, so nobody gets to take vacation. Of course, they keep pushing back the day or the time that we're going to actually get to do this wonderful thing.
So you're not going to make it up here?
Nope. They moved it. They moved it back on us again. Yeah, I wish I could. Well, now, the one way it might happen, well, no, because that would be a weekend and I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, this year, just the way they've got us locked out on vacations, it's like you got to take your vacation, and then they black it out to where you can't take your vacation.
Right.
Welcome to court.
And Dave just sent an update. Yeah, and he's absolutely right. John Travolta is also a Scientologist.
Yeah. Now, did Katie Holmes stay after she split from Tom Cruise? Did she stay in the Scientology, or did she give it all up after she left him?
I'm not sure. Now, here in Washington, we have James Gilliland's compound. I don't like to use the word compound, but down in Trout Lake, Washington, and they actually have the Pleiadians that are supposed to come down all the time, and they have pictures and whatnot. And then we also have the Romptons. The Romptons are they're in Yelm, Washington. They believe in an alien species that lives inside Mount Rainier. J.Z. Knight formed the Romptons. She was a housewife in Roswell, New Mexico in the 1940s. She was channeled by a warrior spirit named Ramtha, and that's basically, in a nutshell, where the Romptons came from. I actually had an NCO that I worked for that lived right outside their compound in Yelm. He said they had a huge, they have walls around this 100 and something acre, and she actually, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I believe it was Shirley MacLaine that she bought the property from.
That sounds familiar. I think you're right on that.
Yeah. I know it was a famous movie star. I believe it was Shirley MacLaine. She bought the property from, and that's where the compound is. And if I don't have their website in front of me. I believe all you have to do is Google Ramtha, and it'll pull up. But they make hundreds of thousands of dollars off people every year, doing all these healing seminars and channeling seminars, and they're international now. But they started off. I would say they probably bought the property in the 70s. So I think that's where they actually started their cult following.
Yeah, because it seems I remember reading back when Omni. There was a science fiction magazine called Omni back in the 70s and 80s that started out really good, and then it kind of got into the new agey crud and kind of lost its way. But I remember them doing a article on the woman that does Ramtha, and they weren't very sympathetic to her, saying basically if somebody disagreed or pressed for something beyond a very general question, she got pretty snippy with them.
And Pacific North Weird, Vince actually did a show involving the Romptons, and oh my God, it was. He has a way on his show though of, and yeah, they're another of our allies. If you want to look them up, look up Pacific North Weird on YouTube, and he does a show every week, and they're a part of the Spaced Out Radio network. There's a lot of us that are all networked with Spaced Out Radio. Make sure you listen to them every night. And we're on their show quite a bit, actually. Actually, Eric Squared, you and I are both on his show quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'll be busy doing something, and all of a sudden Dave will pop up. Hey, can you do third hour? And I, yep, sure.
Yep.
And or nope, I'm busy right now because Forest Moon Paranormal keeps me busy all the time. That's my day job and my night job. In between sleep and my 4 and 5-year-old. And
oh God!
they know Daddy's in the room. We got to be quiet because Daddy's got the radio show tonight. And yeah, but they look at my T-shirt and they can say there's Bigfoot, there's a ghost, and there's an alien, and they're getting it down. They're going to be ahead of the class when it comes to the paranormal.
Hey guys.
Huh?
Hello.
Hello.
We're wrapping it up.
So you guys are about to 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So, Eric, you might want to make announcements about the Paracon and stuff and what's happening.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing all throughout the show. But yeah, make sure you listen to Supernatural Supper, Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock. Right here on Blog Talk Radio. And then you got the Paranormal Book Club with SJ on Friday nights. Is that 8 o'clock as well?
Yes.
All right, 8 o'clock. And Spaced Out Radio every night, 9 to midnight, Pacific Standard Time. And again, for our listeners that aren't familiar with Forest Moon Paranormal, just look for us on Facebook, as well as Fog Paranormal, which is our other ally for the hauntings and the spirit side. We cover everything, but when it comes to an actual physical location that we're investigating, then we pull in SJ and Russ, as well as a couple other mediums that are up here local, and we'll come investigate your house, your business, whatever the issue is.
God, it's too bad I live on the other side of the country.
Well, we're still going to get you a team. I told you we was going to work on getting a team up there. If you're in North Carolina, let me know so we can get you linked up with Eric Markham, so you can start an actual physical paranormal investigator group.
Yeah, I've definitely changed my mind about the makeup of a paranormal group now because I thought it could be done completely scientifically.
Scientific, exactly. And so many groups out there say we're taking this from a scientific point. No, you're not. If you're not a scientist, you don't know what you're looking at. That's why it's nice that we have a scientist right here on board. And I know I was getting some questions about RH negative still, and I know we only have 5 minutes to go.
Did you ever get that book?
I did the next day.
I figured.
But if they have questions about RH negative, they can contact you directly.
Right.
How do they go about getting tested for our RH negative? All they need to do is go do a blood typing, right?
Well, you got to have a reason. Usually, it's not going to happen unless you're going to go in for surgery, and they want to have your ABO-RH handy just in case there's a surgical accident. You may be, if you don't know your blood type, go to a primary care, your primary care physician, or whoever, whether you go to a PA or whatever, and have them write the order. And it's 5 minutes after you.
But they won't do it. They won't do it unless you have to have a reason.
Yeah, you're gonna have to ask for it or have a reason. I mean, it's you might say, hey, look, I'm making a set of dog tags, and I want to put my blood type on it, or you got to have some kind of legit Or you just say, hey, I don't know what my blood type and my RH is, or tell them tell them since a doctor's got to keep confidence, if you say, hey, I don't think my kid is necessarily mine. Can you do a ABO-RH?
Okay.
Something like that. Most people, most doctors or physicians, if you display an interest, I wouldn't mention you're trying to do it because you're trying to find out if you're an alien or not.
Right.
Which
right.
I think we pretty much put that to bed last weekend. But if you
Pretty
just
much.
tell your physician, I really want to know what my my ABO and my RH is. Now you may have to pay for it because it's not if it's not medically necessary, the way insurance is.
Right.
But it shouldn't be that. I don't think it's that expensive.
Okay.
But usually it's like I said, unless you're going in for childbirth or surgery, it's not a routine test.
Right. All right, and real quick, we're gonna wrap this up. Paracon, and also we have Paranormal Coffee every second Friday of the month. It's already passed for this month, but make sure you come to Concrete, Washington, 2 o'clock at the Lone Star Restaurant is where we do our Paranormal Coffee. And Paracon is October 22nd, 23rd. Again, if you want more information on that, it's always posted in our Force Moon Paranormal group. We have 9 guests coming from all across the United States, covering every aspect of the paranormal. We actually have Bigfoot castings class done. That one's going to cost $20. Overall, the whole Paracon is free, unless you want to jump into the VIP Roundtable, which is a $20 ticket. And other than that, it's a free Paracon, which
and don't
you
forget,
won't find anywhere.
Unless you want to buy tickets for the raffles.
Well, the raffle, that's extra. That's not lectures.
Yeah.
There are raffles going on, and we do have vendors. If you are a vendor and you're local, by all means, we are looking for vendors still. $20 for both days, and we're looking for vendors. If you have a Halloween-themed bake sale, well, I don't care. That's fine, but we need vendors. And on that note, we're wrapping up now. Thank you for listening to S-4 up here in Concrete, Washington. Until next week, have a good week. Bye-bye.
That isn't just the sound of the all-new 2016 Mercedes-Benz GLC being put through its paces. It's the sound of innovation. The innovation behind one of the most advanced SUVs on the road today. With multiple driving modes, a suite of intelligent drive systems, and a technology-filled cabin that sets new standards in modern luxury. This is what innovation sounds like. Now, discover what it feels like in a 2016 Mercedes-Benz GLC.
Some equipment described as optional.
That isn't just the sound of the all-new 2016 Mercedes-Benz GLC being put through its paces. It's the sound of innovation. The innovation behind one of the most advanced SUVs on the road today. With multiple driving modes, a suite of intelligent drive systems, and a technology-filled cabin that sets new standards in modern luxury. This is what innovation sounds like. Now, discover what it feels like in a 2016 Mercedes-Benz GLC.
Some equipment described as optional.